Good afternoon, everyone. Marilyn Height Ross, Winnebago County State's Attorney. Here to my right is Chuck Davidson, Commander with the Winnebago-Boone County Integrity Task Force. To his right is Deputy State's Attorney Pamela Wells. To my left is Chief Theo Glover, who is Chair of the Winnebago-Boone County Integrity Task Force. We are here today to update you on a Winnebago-Boone County Task Force investigation. First, I'm going to give you a brief synopsis of the facts that have occurred that activated the task force, and then I'm going to display for you on the screen and go through the investigative process. The incident occurred approximately 5:30 p.m. on Friday, October 2nd, 2020 at the intersection of Springfield and Harrison Road on the south side of the city, Illinois Route 2. At that time, Rockford police officers observed suspect Tyrese Jones, date of birth, September 9, 1999, driving a vehicle. The officers attempted to stop the suspect. The suspect at that time was wanted on several warrants, including a warrant for aggravated discharge of a firearm that was issued September 29, 2020, aggravated domestic battery, which was issued August 26 of 2020, and aggravated domestic battery that was issued on September 21st, 2020. When the officers attempted to stop Mr. Jones, he fled. He then crashed his vehicle into another vehicle, fled that vehicle, approached another motorist, and appeared to have a weapon. At that time, the officer discharged his weapon. Mr. Jones was transported to a local hospital, is currently in stable but critical condition. Mr. Jones was struck 3 times, the right arm, and 2 times in the lower back. Mr. Jones was shot 3 times, and the officer discharged his weapon 5 times. The Winnebago County State's Attorney's Office reviews all officer-involved shootings, whether or not there is a death. We also review shootings that occur in custody of any law enforcement personnel. Consistent with all criminal investigations, the law enforcement agency that is tasked with investigating this incident is the Winnebago-Boone County Integrity Task Force. Now, I'm going to, at this time, go through the slides that are on the screen and ask Chief Glover if he could step a little over to the left there so that you all can view the screen. Okay. So the Winnebago-Boone County Integrity Task Force was formed in 2010. Subsequent to that, Boone County joined the task force in 2013, and it was renamed the Winnebago-Boone County Integrity Task Force. The purpose of the Integrity Task Force is to investigate all in-custody deaths, felony complaints of on-duty officers, and any officer's use of deadly force, whether or not a death occurs. The task force is comprised of all of the agencies, law enforcement agencies within Winnebago and Boone County. You can see all of those agencies that are currently listed on the screen. The task force exists because these agencies have come together voluntarily to join the task force, and there is, in fact, an intergovernmental task force agreement that all of these agencies share. The decision to activate the task force is strictly in the hands of the leader of the police agency in which the officer was employed. In this particular case, the officer was employed by the Rockford Police Department, so the decision to activate the task force was in the purview of Chief O'Shea, who did in fact activate the task force immediately. The process is then to call the state's attorney to notify the state's attorney regarding the officer-involved shooting as well as the activation of the task force, and that in fact was completed. There also has to be an approval of the activation, and Chief Glover will talk to you about that because he is the chair that has the task force. The process continues that the requesting agency provides a summary of the incident to the task force, and at that time, the total investigation is within the purview of the Integrity Task Force, and the involved agency is no longer involved at all. Also, what you should know is that any members of the involved agency that belong to the task force are also not part of the investigation, and Chief Glover will also speak to you about that. So basically, there are no members of the Rockford Police Department that are involved in this investigation, because this investigation involves a Rockford police officer. In addition, the task force has squad leaders who communicate with my office and any other prosecuting agencies, such as the U.S. Attorney's Office, that might be involved to keep us apprised of the status of the investigation. It is also the responsibility of the task force commander to ensure that all police reports that are generated during the investigation are collected, and make sure that those are also subsequently sent to the state's attorney's office once the investigation has been completed. Media releases going forward are handled by the task force, such as the status of the investigation and when the investigation has been completed. It has been my role to obviously keep the press apprised as to where we are in the status of any investigation, whether it's by the task force or another agency. In this particular case, as always, the investigations are unique, and they will take the amount of time that is necessary to complete a thorough investigation. Once the investigation has been completed, obviously it will be reviewed just like any other criminal investigation. The state's attorney, in this case myself, has the authority by statute and Illinois Constitution to review all criminal matters, and I will in fact be reviewing that in this case as well. The state's attorney also will provide guidance to the task force investigators regarding securing additional information that they may need to complete their investigation. I would also at this time indicate that it is an ongoing investigation. We are looking for any individuals that were in the area that may not have remained in the area to reach out to the Winnebago-Boone County Integrity Task Force. The phone number is 815-987-7844, 815-987-7844, or you can call Crime Stoppers, but certainly Commander Davidson will speak a little more about that. The other point I want to make during the press conference is that I understand that there is a strong public interest in learning facts surrounding any officer-involved shooting. However, as with any investigation that may lead to criminal charges, the Illinois Rules of Professional Conduct and the Illinois Code of Criminal Procedure place restrictions on the information that the Winnebago County State's Attorney's Office may release to the public at this time. Specifically, the Illinois Rules of Professional Conduct prohibit an attorney from making any extrajudicial statements that a lawyer knows or reasonably should know will be disseminated by means of public communication, which could pose a serious and imminent threat to the fairness of an adjudicative proceeding. In addition, the Illinois Rules of Professional Responsibility, Rule 3.8, specifically applies to prosecutors, and it says in a criminal case, a prosecutor shall, except for statements that are necessary to inform the public of the nature and extent of the prosecutor's action and that serve as a legitimate law enforcement purpose, refrain from making extrajudicial statements that pose a serious or imminent threat of heightening public condemnation of the accused, and exercise reasonable care to prevent investigators, law enforcement personnel, and employees and other persons also associated with the prosecutor's office from making those types of statements as well. Now, these are designed to protect the rights of the accused in any criminal proceeding or investigation. Information that you may not know today, you will learn that information once the investigation has been completed and through the process. At this time, I will ask Chief Glover to step forward and have a few remarks, and then we will be happy to take questions after Chuck Davidson, Commander, speaks to you.
Hi, I'm Chief Glover, Rockford Park District Police Chief. I'm also the chair of the Winnebago-Boone Integrity Task Force. I've served over 6 years as chair, and as Attorney Height Ross told you through the process, once an officer involved shooting goes down, the sheriff or chief or their designee will give me a call and give me a synopsis of what has occurred. And if it meets our criteria, I then will tell them that I'm going to call the commander of the Winnebago-Boone Integrity Task Force, give them the synopsis, and we will activate our team. The team will consist of, we have A, B, and C teams, and we have those because we want to make sure that the person whose agency calls us is not a part of the team that's going to investigate the incident. Which went down on yesterday. I fielded the call from Chief O'Shea. He gave me the synopsis. I in turn called the commander, which is Chuck Davidson, and gave him the information. And at that point, he proceeded to assemble his team of investigators to respond to the scene. So with that, I will ask Commander Davidson to step up.
Good afternoon. My name is Master Sergeant Chuck Davidson. I work for the Illinois State Police, and as Chief alluded to, I'm the commander of the Winnebago-Boone Integrity Task Force. As Chief talked about, I've been a member of the Winnebago-Boone Integrity Task Force for approximately 9 to 10 years, basically since its inception. And as Chief alluded to yesterday, we were called with the situation that happened yesterday, and I assembled a team of investigators that were not part of Rockford PD. So the team we assembled yesterday consisted of Winnebago County Sheriff's Department employees, Illinois State Police, Loves Park Police detectives, and Boone County detectives. We currently have, last night we had about 10 or 15 detectives working the case, and today we're still working through the clock, including our crime scene investigators, processing vehicles, interviewing witnesses, and gathering video, and completing the investigation. It's still ongoing. Can't really talk much about the investigation other than say it's ongoing. We would like to reach out to the public, as State's Attorney Marilyn Height Ross mentioned earlier. We have a phone number set up for anybody that was in the area. Obviously, it's a busy intersection of South Main and Harrison, Springfield area. So there's lots of cars and traffic through there. So anybody that saw anything or may possibly involved, please reach out to the number provided, which is area code 815-987-7844. With that, I'll turn it back over to the State's Attorney.
At this time, we obviously, again, I indicated to you the condition of Mr. Jones. We obviously hope and pray that he continues to improve and is removed from the critical status. I would just like to say and state that during the investigative process, I'm asking for patience, peace, and calm. Once the investigation has been completed and reviewed by the State's Attorney's Office, that decision and those results will be released to the public at that time. So I'm happy to take any questions at
You
this
you
time.
mentioned, I'm sorry, you mentioned Mr. Jones appeared to have been armed, was he?
The investigation is ongoing. At this time, there was not a weapon recovered at the scene.
But by appeared, what do you base that on?
I can't get into the details of that. I'm trying to give all of you as many facts as I can, but knowing that it is an open investigation, there are certain specific details that I'm not at liberty to disclose at this time, because some of that information is not yet known.
Okay, so he was not armed.
I said that a weapon was not found at the scene.
I see.
That's what I know at this time.
Are
So
you
I will
willing-
only give you information that I know at this time, because it is an ongoing investigation. There's information that I currently do not have access to and is not known.
Can you tell us the identity of the officer who fired the shots?
I'm going to refer any information regarding the particular officer to the Rockford Police Department, including that officer's name. As you know, in these types of situations, historically, it is the agency that determines when to release that information based upon the contracts that they have with their officers. So I will direct you to the Rockford Police Department for that information.
You said the officer fired 5 shots, correct?
That's correct.
And just one officer fired?
That's the information that I have. That's correct.
Has Mr. Jones been charged with anything?
Mr. Jones has not been charged with anything relating to this investigation currently because it's ongoing. As I indicated, Mr. Jones had 3 active warrants for him for felony offenses, one involving a firearm.
Was he alone in the car?
No, he was not.
How many other people were with him?
Mr. Jones had a passenger in his vehicle at the time.
And just confirming he was shot once in the right arm and twice in the lower back.
Once in the arm, the right arm, and I'm not sure specifically where. I believe it was the upper arm, but in the right arm and the lower back.
Can you go through the departments that once again are going to be partaking in the investigation?
Sure.
Currently, the list of detectives that are investigating are state police investigators, Loves Park police investigators, Winnebago County Sheriff's Department investigators, and Boone County detectives.
Commander Davidson, forgive me for not knowing this. When did you replace Sam Thomas?
Sam Thomas was promoted and moved to another unit approximately, I believe, March of this year. So I took over for him in March.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, everyone, for coming out on this Saturday afternoon. We will be